Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now October 8th of 2023, and given that Disney is really anticipating a lot of failures on their end throughout the remainder of this year, as well as the beginning of 2024 for Snow White the live-action remake, we know that those attached to this film, like Andrew Burnap, Gal Gadot, as well as Rachel Zegler, they're dealing with the fallout from Disney's mismanagement with this movie that's going to be, in my opinion, worse than The Little Mermaid 2023. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about Snow White that has been going on behind the scenes is that we know that director Marc Webb, the editors of this film, and Greta Gerwig, one of the writers besides Aaron Wilson, have really been attempting to course correct this movie. And I've said this endless times, if not maybe too many times, that this movie, there's nothing that you can do to save it. No matter how many re-edits you pursue, no matter how many reshoots that you embrace, if they even want to do that anymore. We know that the strikes got in the way of that plan B of theirs, and really, the SAG strike has to end by November 1 if they even want to pursue Plan B, so that's really a 50-50 shot right now. But what makes matters even worse has a lot to do with the ending sequence of Snow White in the current revision of this movie, as it has been going through a lot of re-edits, a lot of scenes getting swapped and changed around to drastically reduce the running time as well. However, this is where it gets really interesting, involving the last act of Snow White, specifically the last few sequences. Now, of course, with Snow White 24 going through endless issues behind the scenes, one major development has to do with the ending scene for Snow White that has been going under numerous revisions by director Marc Webb and the editors demanded by Disney. One crucial update surrounding this has to do with one sequence in which the 7 magical creatures are singing the remix version of the popular Hi-Ho song, in which it is a combination of hip-hop and folk music. This is a scene that was filmed back in June of 2022 that serves as the celebration of the Evil Queen's death that takes place in the middle of the woods during a campfire. Now, Marc Webb and the Disney heads decided to keep the second half of the Hi-Ho remix song, of course, in the ending scene. As they sing the song, get this, the magical creatures can be seen playing instruments such as violins, drums, and even new otherworldly instruments that are not known in the real world. Now, let me just say one thing about that. The fact that they are introducing new instruments that are not familiar with, common ones in the real world is something that I think is going to be very strange to a lot of casual audience members that go ahead and see this movie. And I think it's going to be Disney's excuse for allowing a hip-hop song to take place in this movie. Now, we know that they did this with the Scuttlebutt movie, or should I say the Scuttlebutt song for the Little Mermaid movie, and how cringe that was. And we know that that actual song was almost, to the point where you can't even listen to it from point A to point B. It's that terrible. Every now and again, I like to give up a little challenge to you guys, and if you want to check out the Scuttlebutt song after this video, or if you want to X this video out right now and watch it, so be it. That's up to you, but there's a lot of things going on with Snow White and the poor choices of music that are being demonstrated in this movie that I think is going to cause a lot of walkouts, reduced, fan watch time, of course, of Snow White. And not just that, we know that a lot of Disney and Snow White fans are just through with what Rachel Zegler said and how they actually view this movie. There's a lot of families, believe it or not, that are boycotting this movie to begin with. And it's only going to get worse once the trailer drops and once the TV spots begin to roll on television and on the internet. But let's progress further, alright? Now, on top of this, we know that this sequence in particular was one of the scenes that were actually requested by director Marc Webb to up the budget of the movie and to get extra scenes into this actual movie. Now, this is the one scene that Disney is dealing with a lot of backlash over from the screeners that took part in the test screening of Snow White, and it's only making their situation more severe. You know, it's almost like they can't get out of this catch-22. There's no escape. They have to either pull the plug on this movie, put it direct to Disney Plus, or just backroll the whole thing and never let it see the light of day. Now, moving onwards, alright? The song is described to be just as bad as the Scuttlebutt song from The Little Mermaid. Another sequence that is now in the current cut of the ending scene for Snow White involves a moment in which Andrew Burnap's Jonathan tries to give Snow White a kiss on the lips. This is where Zegler's Snow White quickly turns her head and allows Burnap to kiss her on the cheek instead, seemingly denying the romance in the story, almost like a friend zone sequence. This was a scene written by Greta Gerwig, where she did not want a traditional Prince and Snow White romantic ending toward the end of the film. Gerwig aimed to make this a humorous scene that will likely anger the general public. The worst of all, it also involves kissing, where the 7 magical creatures line up, one of which awaiting their departure from Snow White. One of the creatures goes in for a kiss, however Zegler quickly gives them a handshake instead, one after the other. There is no famous kissing of the forehead for the 7 dwarfs in this film. That is all excluded, as Disney felt it would be too forward for younger audiences. The scene was best described as a failure during one of the test screenings for Snow White, and Disney is doubling down to keeping this in the final cut. The last shot, as of right now, for the ending, reportedly involves Snow White hopping on Jonathan's horse and telling him that he can take the back. The shot ends with Snow White leading Jonathan toward the castle instead of Jonathan's in this movie. Now, this is interesting, the fact that we have Zegler, her version of Snow White, leading the way, going toward a castle as Jonathan takes a seat in the back. Completely reversed from the original 37 film. And we know that in the original, we have Prince Florian in the front leading the way for Snow White toward the castle, which is exactly how it should be in the overall, structure of this film. You could see that Greta Gerwig is really doubling down on this whole feminist movement with Snow White 2024. There's no doubt about that. And we have seen, and even though Barbie was successful, we have seen elements of that thrown into that Barbie film, that you can see that resonating here with Snow White. And this just goes to show you that Disney loves to hire people that end up losing them money. It's almost like Bob Iger is obsessed with losing tens of millions, heck, hundreds of millions of dollars, release by release, and it's only going to hurt their attendees at their Disney parks worldwide. It will, and it will continue to fail. So this is another prime example of breaking the source material, and not only that, pushing these woke agendas that absolutely make no sense to the general public at all, that they are not going to agree with. I'm sure, like I said before, it's going to create a lot of walkouts, and it's going to create negative word of mouth for sure, preventing people from even seeing this film. I've said this many times, I think, and I will stand by my opinion, that it will be the worst Disney release of all time. Anyway, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.